Welcome back, folks. I'm Jake Ellenbogen, and today we are talking about Syracuse quarterback Kyle McCord and why I think he makes a lot of sense for the Rams, either late day 2 or early day 3. So we're going to get into it. We're going to show you some film. Going to do things a little bit differently so this doesn't end up being a 40-minute video and it's easy to be digested. But before we get into it, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Be sure to follow me on all social media at JKBogan, including Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Kick. In addition to that, just want to let you guys know that if you want to check out my latest interview with Cameron Curl, you can do so over on the lounge. So be sure to check out the link in the description below. All right, guys. So Kyle McCord, man, this is a quarterback that I've heard a lot about from you guys, from other people, and I came away really impressed with some of the things I was able to see. So we're going to get into it. 1-year starter at Ohio State, waited until his junior year to finally start. And he ended up transferring to Syracuse. Took a lot of scrutiny because, there are a lot of people saying, wow, he doesn't have the competitive fire that I want because he wouldn't fight off Will Howard. But I'm going to defend Kyle McCord here because he waited patiently as a 5-star recruit, didn't transfer, and he waited until his junior year. He had a pretty solid junior season. I'm not saying it was the best. Did have some issues, but it was pretty much of the same par or maybe better than Will Howard. And so, he basically was like, I'm not fighting for my job. I'll just go somewhere where somebody actually wants me, because they brought in Will Howard. He's like, no, thank you. So he goes to Syracuse, and, instantly Syracuse reaps the benefits there. He's listed at 6'3", 218 pounds. He's going to be 23 this year, currently 22 years of age. He finished college with a 66.2% completion percentage, 61 touchdowns, 20 interceptions, and 154.4 passer rating. McCord led all of college football, according to PFF, in big-time throws. In addition to that, he was also second in turnover-worthy plays, something we'll get into. He was tied for 12th in drop passes, led the country in passing yards as well as first downs. And he was tied for 5th in passing touchdowns, tied for 4th in interceptions, graded 7th of all the quarterbacks per PFF in 2024. And he was hit while he was throwing more than anybody in the country. So 23rd in pressure rate, responsible for, which is pretty good. Kyle McCord is a good prospect in this draft. Now, I don't like this quarterback draft much at all. I don't think it's great. But there are guys like the Kyle McCords out there that I think these are the guys you want to hitch the wagon to. Okay. I'm definitely not anti-Cam Ward. I think he's the best quarterback in the draft. He's the only guy to give a first-round grade to. Doesn't mean he's the only guy that I think is going to be drafted in the first round, because we know how that goes. But he's the only guy I would say is a first-round talented quarterback. But there are some other guys out there. When I look at McCord, though, this is a really good scenario for the Rams here. And understand this. What are you getting with this guy? Well, here are the pros. So when I was watching his film, first off, he's got bulk up top. We talk about that being, 218 pounds, but he's bulky up top. And what I mean by that is when, somebody tries to bring him down via a sack or a tackle, in the torso area, he can shed that tackle or sack, stay upright, and stay firm in the pocket. And I think that's something that I really enjoyed watching, is that this guy he definitely isn't going to blow you away with his athleticism, but he can stay up in the pocket and make throws downfield. I think he handles pressure pretty well. Tends to make way more mistakes when he has time as opposed to not having time. He understands he can't overdo it. So I do think that's kind of an underrated thing that I noticed in his game. He doesn't show a sign of panic. He keeps his eyes down the field. As soon as he's running, he doesn't drop his eyes. Anybody that's been watching my content talking about quarterbacks for the last however many years in the draft, that's a big, in my opinion, that's a huge red flag when a quarterback takes off and, he's running, but he hasn't committed to run past the line of scrimmage. He's already dropped his eyes, because that tells everybody that, hey, I am a runner. I'm not even going to try and throw this ball. So I don't love that at all, but that's something that McCord is really good with. He keeps his eyes downfield, keeps the play alive, can move throughout the pocket. And the big thing is, I don't really feel like his mechanics suffer when he is rushed. I think that's a good thing there. His ball placement is incredible. I think that's something that is really important as well. Really impressive on film. Doesn't put the ball just on the money. He puts it the exact textbook spot that would benefit the receiver the most. So if you have a receiver that is catching a crosser over the middle, he's going to put it right out in front of him to make sure that he can just continue running without breaking stride. You may look at this and say, I've seen guys that can do it. And yes, there are guys that can do it. However, guys that can do it on a play or two are a lot different than guys that consistently do it. And Kyle McCord of Syracuse consistently puts the ball where it needs to be and gives his receivers opportunities to run with the ball after the catch. So I love that about him. His ball placement, like I said, is incredible. I absolutely love it. I just think that, when you have a guy that is capable of that, it really maximizes the weapons that you have around him. So that's what I'll say about that. But then he can make any throw on the field. I've seen a lot of nitpicking, especially on social media, about him. He doesn't have the biggest arm, yada, yada. But when I watch him, he can make any throw on the field, whether it's a far hash throw, a back shoulder fade, throwing that crosser over the middle, throwing a bubble screen, throwing a slip screen, wide receiver or running back, what have you, throwing on the run. I mean, he can make any throw that you ask him to. He can throw a touch down the field. So I really like that ability where it just feels like sometimes he'll make the daring throw. He'll layer the ball over a linebacker, which I love watching on film. And then sometimes he'll take what the defense gives him. But I think more often than not, he's trying to make you pay. He is not going to sit there and play game manager. He is trying to attack your defense. Make no mistake about it. He is a gunslinger. Now, obviously, you would have known that because I told you he was up there in turnover-worthy plays as well as big-time throws. So that is something you kind of have to work with. But again, this is why I think it fits into the Rams kind of scenario here. He's got a strong arm, despite what people say. I think it's a strong enough arm for the league, can fit a ball in a tight window, hit that far hash throw like I mentioned, but again, has enough touch to hit that deep ball. And there are times where, he'll miss, but I saw some drops. I saw perfectly placed footballs, and he had a good pro day as well. I don't know if you saw his scripted throws. Not that I put too much stock into that, but he had a pretty good pro day with the deep ball as well. He's not afraid to live to play another down. This is another key area, key and critical for me when I'm evaluating quarterbacks. Look, it's not the end of the world unless it literally comes down to the wire and this is the final play. It's not the end of the world to throw the ball away, okay? You couldn't find anything. No one was there. You don't have the athleticism to make things happen on the level of some of your peers. Please do not try anything stupid. And that's something McCord understands. He understands his athleticism. He understands his limitations. He's going to throw that ball away, take better care of the football, which I like. He's a quick, compact throw of the football, no wasted motion, can keep the offense churning upfield on the short and intermediate. And he really is the guy when you talk about the death by 1,000 paper cuts type of offensive play calling style, like Tom Brady with the New England Patriots, what have you. This is that type of guy that can absolutely just neutralize your defense if you let him. If you leave these guys open, he can make those throws. He can make tight window throws, but when he's throwing, those tight window throws or he's throwing, against coverage, he doesn't quite have the understanding that I would like to see with leverage. And so, I think he does a really nice job when guys are open, though, putting it right on the money. You're not going to see many throws where it's behind him or below or way too high. You're going to see him be able to put the ball where it needs to be. And he's got some impressive plays where he's, dropping back and there's some pressure and he kind of does like a back pedal and still puts it right on the money. So he's a good player. Like I said, he's also durable. Really didn't miss too many games throughout his college career. But here's the deal. With every prospect, because there's no such thing as a perfect prospect, he's got some cons. I mentioned a lot of pros. I don't think there's a ton of cons, but they're big enough to, I think limit him where he goes in the draft, and why I say I think it's going to be dependent on where he goes in the draft, what team he goes to. So anyway, he may get a little too comfortable, hold on to the ball too long, wait for the deep route to develop when it's not going to, and take a sack. That has happened on tape. It is clear. It is evident. Doesn't mean that I wouldn't draft him now because of it. That's something that can be corrected, but it is something that I noticed, as well as he had very few full field reads. Say that 5 times fast. But on tape, he did not read the full field, okay? And if he did, it was like 1 or 2 plays. For the most part, it is 1 read, 2 read, go. It really wasn't, hey, I'm going to look all over the field. I'm going to scan, go through my 4 progressions. That's not who McCord is at this point in his career. Doesn't mean that's not who he can be, but that's not who he is right now. He normally went through half field reads, had a pretty good idea of where he was going with the ball pre-snap, and that's just, that's McCord. I think that's why he made some really good throws, really good timing, threw with anticipation, had some really good decision-making because he knew where he was going to go with the football, and you can get away with that in college, but in the NFL, you're not going to be able to get away with that. He's just not very athletic. I think that's another thing that you just have to say. He can make a guy miss in the pocket, kind of like Stafford, but if he doesn't have a good offensive line, it's going to be a problem in the league. Make no mistake about it. You now have edge defenders that can run in the 4.3s, and it shows up on film. He is not going to outrun those guys at all, and that is a little bit of a concern, just like anybody for that matter. But if you give him a decent enough offensive line, he can deal with pressure. He just can't deal with a free runner, and I don't know many quarterbacks that can. He's a little turnover prone, like I mentioned. Limits his floor out of the gate. I think he, really can't be the backup 2-year starter. If you're trying to win a Super Bowl, that is, because he has those tendencies where it's like he's going to need some time to sit, learn, and process. He's got some really good traits. He's got a skill set that I covet, but as far as a floor, it's not as high as his ceiling, and that's a good thing. He has a chance, if he goes to the right situation, to be a franchise quarterback in this league. And when I say that, I'm not saying the top-notch, top 5 franchise quarterback. I'm saying top half of the league. Not saying 5th or number 1, but top half of the league, depending on where he goes. And, the last thing I'll say is, as far as the cons here, is that he can put his receivers, like I mentioned with the ball placement, sometimes it's too good, right? He puts it out in front of a receiver, and it's a hospital ball territory where he's going to get absolutely clunked. Doesn't happen a ton, and he has the, wherewithal to avoid that at times, but you still see it on tape where he gets that cocky arm, will throw it in between 3 defenders, and one of the guys is going to get absolutely destroyed, and he still lets that ball go. Receiver tries to get it, and he gets leveled. You don't necessarily want to see that, especially the Rams, their offense is so predicated on the passing attack and the guys that they have. Not saying that he'll ever throw to Devontae Adams in a game, but if he did, and God forbid Adams went down because of one of those throws, well, there you go. So, player comp. Who does Kyle McCord remind me of? Well, there are 2. First off, on the low end, right? Who I think he comes out of the gate with a little bit, with some modifications. He reminds me of Jimmy Garoppolo, okay? Jimmy Garoppolo coming out of the FCS. Look, Kyle McCord is nowhere near a finished product. Nowhere near. But he is a tough SOB. And I think that's something that Sean McVay is going to covet. I do think the Rams are going to be interested in him. He's going to dice up any defense in the short and intermediate. So I think he'd be a fun preseason watch. I can tell you that much because they're going to play predominantly very vanilla defenses. But, I think that's what you're going to see. And he doesn't have the strongest arm ever, but don't tell him that because he's still going to throw and he's still going to make some big time throws. You're getting a guy with a chip on his shoulder. Went to Syracuse, made them better instantly. Great ball placement, like I said, overall, very accurate inside the 10 to 25 yard range. The deep ball, a little bit of work in progress, but he can still hit his receivers in stride. His lack of athleticism limits what he can do when a play absolutely breaks down. But his pocket skills, his footwork, quick release, solid mechanics shouldn't disqualify him at the next level. So when I look at that, due to the things that I just mentioned, I see a lot of Jimmy Garoppolo in his game, mainly because Jimmy G can absolutely slaughter you in the short and intermediate game. And that was always the case coming out of college. But the big thing was he was also athletic, and that's something that Kyle McCord is not. Garoppolo can get out on the run. He's not necessarily going to run and scramble and have 100-yard rushing, day, but he is a guy that can make plays and, keep the play going. Whereas the margin for error is a lot slimmer for Kyle McCord who runs in the 4.9. So Kirk Cousins, to me, he was labeled more as a game manager coming out of college. Not long after, he turned into a gunslinger. So I kind of see a little bit of the two there. I think looking at Garoppolo, he's really like him in the short and intermediate game. And I think he's got that Kirk Cousins gunslinger. And that's why I say on the higher end. So low end, it's Jimmy Garoppolo as his comp. On the high end, it's Kirk Cousins because Kirk Cousins was a game manager and check down Charlie, and then he became what he ended up being, a guy that threw, I think it was 3 straight years over 100 passer rating, a guy that would throw the deep ball, a guy that would, just absolutely fire it in there with accuracy, and that's something that I could see McCord end up being. So I kind of see the cross between the two. Right now, he feels like Garoppolo without the athleticism coming out of college, but I feel like his ceiling, he could be like Kirk Cousins. I think that's fair. So I think McCord is a great fit for the Rams. I think if you can get him late day 2 or early day 3 to develop behind Stafford and Garoppolo and work with Sean McVay, you are cooking with gas. I have this feeling that the Rams are going to target him with that 4th round pick. If he's there, I think he's the best fit because you wouldn't have to worry about him backing up Stafford. You already have Garoppolo. You carried a 3rd quarterback last year in Stetson Bennett. You could carry Kyle McCord on the roster. And I'm telling you, I think this is the best fit for him because we already know what he can do. Isolated, he can make any throw, but we got to get the mental game right. And that's where working with Stafford, working with Garoppolo, working with Sean McVay, I think will really help him out. So the Rams also, in this sense, wouldn't have to commit to McCord either. So in a really good 2026 NFL quarterback draft, that is where this also matters because, now you can spend this and you also don't feel like you have to commit and you can still draft the guy that you want in that class. That said, and another thing here, for anybody that pushes back, because I've been saying this, you're trying to win now, you're trying to win a Super Bowl, why would you spend, this high of a pick on a quarterback? I think they can do that now because I think they hit on all their needs. I don't think they have any needs, and anybody they get, they have to keep in mind this is going to be either, unless it's a 1st round pick, it's a 5-year deal. But all these guys are 4-year deals, cost effective. These are the guys that are going to be a part of the next generation of Rams football after Matthew Stafford. I have no issue with them spending a pick on Kyle McCord because I think he has everything that Sean McVay is looking for, and the things he doesn't have or the things that he doesn't show consistently is what I believe Sean McVay can get the most out of him with. So That said, would absolutely love Kyle McCord on the Rams. I will be mocking him to the Rams unless anything changes. I think he fits that style. Is he the mobile quarterback that people are going to want? No, but I think it's important to realize that this is still a league where quarterbacks and pocket passers still matter in this league. If you're looking at Shedeur Sanders and saying he can't work in this league because he's not a mobile quarterback and he's not, an absolute, freight train like a Cam Newton, or he can't run like a Justin Fields or Josh Allen or whatever, you're not paying attention. There are guys that can play this position and guys that can't. And you either have the chops or you don't. I believe Kyle McCord has the chops. Is it enough to keep him as the starter if he were to take over for Stafford? That remains to be seen. Is it enough for him to stick on this roster? That remains to be seen. But the projection there is Kirk Cousins to me. And like I said, out of the gate, I think he's Jimmy Garoppolo coming out of college, out of the FCS. I think he's a good player. Wish he had a little bit more athleticism, but that would be the reason why he is available on day 3 as opposed to going early in the either day 1 or early day 2. But that's going to do it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys like this format more. Again, quicker to the point, getting it out there. Yes, there's still, tape, but it's not sitting there and just breaking it all down because that takes forever. And of course, not everybody has 40 something minutes to watch all that. So again, if you enjoyed this, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and let me know what you most enjoyed about this video. Let me know if I sold you on Kyle McCord, if I pushed you away, or if you were always in on Kyle McCord. I will have another video where it's going to kind of move away from just wide receivers. And we're going to focus on players I think would make the most sense for the Rams fit-wise. So we might have another quarterback soon, but I really like Kyle McCord's fit, so I wanted to make sure to put this out there. You guys take care. I'll see you soon. Later, folks. All right, guys, so once again, just want to let you guys know that you can check out my new side project, The Lounge. I interview athletes, musicians, actors, actresses, all the nine. So definitely check it out over on the Lounge with Jake Ellenbogen channel. Be sure to subscribe and enjoy. In case you guys haven't noticed, I do have a Discord channel for my community on this channel. And if you want to be a part of it, it is free. The link is in the description below. You can sign up. This is basically a 24/7 Rams channel, and we are almost at 1,100 members. So if you want to be a part of it, just hit the link in the description below.